it's Kristen and it's time for another Feminist Friday. So this time around I'm going to be reading I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. This is a translated novel, the version I have originally written in French, and it is about a group of women who are trapped, caged in this bunker, and that is pretty much all I know about it. I just know these women have been imprisoned, all the guards are men, I believe, and they basically just have all these questions of like, where are they? How did they get there? Why are they there? What is going on? But it's the kind of book that is quite like polarizing, I think. People seem to either really like it or not get along with it. So I'm sort of assuming it's gonna be one of those books where you have all these questions, but they potentially don't actually get answered. So we will see what my thoughts are, if I enjoy the book or not. I will let you know as I go along. I'm borrowing my sister's copy, so I need to get my hands on that and get reading. So I've been reading this for a couple of days. I'm not very far in because I have been busy, but today I'm gonna like try and get through a significant portion, if not the whole thing, question mark. But basically we're thrust like right into the story with our main character who's in this bunker in a cage with a bunch of other women. I think there's around 40 of them, and there's not a ton of world building. We're just put into this environment with no real explanation because the characters themselves don't know. Our main character has been in the bunker since she was a child, since like before she could actually remember, and even the older women in the bunker don't have any real memory of how they got there, and none of them know why they're there or what any of this is about. But our main character at this point, now that I'm 57 pages in, which is roughly a third of the way through, has been starting to try and work out maybe bits of what's going on. She's been observing the guards, one young guard in particular, and she's trying to provoke a reaction, and she's counting timings of like when they're woken up, when they're fed, how long their day is, when the guards change shifts and stuff like that. And it's sort of renewing the group of women and their energies a bit, because they'd like stopped discussing stuff like that, and they've worked out that actually like the timings are not consistent, and they're throwing all these questions and theories out, but it's still difficult because they can't actually come to any conclusion on anything because they genuinely don't know anything that is going on. They don't know how they got there, why they're there, why they've been there so long. So it's very interesting, but it's also the kind of book where I'm not entirely sure that we're actually going to get any answers. So I am intrigued to see where this goes, because I've generally heard such good things about this book, and it's very highly rated, it's very well regarded, well respected as a literary novel. But my book club read this before I joined. I joined my book club after they'd read like 2 books, and this was one of them. And I don't think my book club reviewed it particularly well. When I've previously talked about like wanting to catch up on the books I missed out on reading before I joined, the girls who are still in the book club have been very like, nah, you like, no need to. I remember my sister liking this, so yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm wondering what's going on. I'm wondering if we're gonna actually get any answers. So we will see, and I will let you know. And this will be a spoilery vlog because regardless of what happens, I want to be able to talk about what does happen and what we find out or what we don't find out. Last night I read more of the book. I got up to like part 3. It doesn't have like named parts, but we have like a blank page and then a new sort of section starts. I sort of wanted to try and finish the whole thing, but it was nearing midnight and I had 50 pages left and I was like, that's like another hour of reading. Just gonna stop and pick it up tomorrow, today. We had quite a lot happen, so a big event, a major event, as the character says, happens, which completely like changes their setup. So they've been in this cage with these guards for years and never knowing like what exactly is happening. And then one day a siren goes off and the guards all like immediately leave and like run out. But it was at the point where they were opening the hatch to pass them food, and so they leave the keys in the lock as they run out. So our main character unlocks the hatch, climbs out, and then unlocks the cage, and all the women get out, which I found really interesting because as far as I knew with this story, it was these women in this bunker. And that was like all I knew. And I didn't know that they get out. They get out of this bunker and they go up to the world, the outside world. It then really becomes a story of, I don't know, traveling, because it doesn't change to a story of survival because they've been surviving this whole time and they've really had to be creative with like the way they use things. So in the bunker, even when they needed to like sew new dresses, they would like take their hair and plait some strands of hair together and use that as thread, which is like a very resourceful way to use the very little that you have. And so then we see them using these tricks and these ideas that they've learned with slightly more resources now in a completely new environment, and how they use and reuse and repurpose these things in order to travel. Then we get more of our main character taking like a leading role within this group, because she's very excited initially to be out because she has no concept of what the outside world was like before she went in the cage. So it's all just new to her, and she doesn't have ties to the old world. So she's just like, this is new, what have we got, what can we do? And she gets very handy at like building things, but she always wants to be moving on, trying to find the next thing, trying to find more resources, trying to build something new, trying to just do what she can. Whereas some of the other women, after traveling for so long, because we then cross like a long distance of time, of them journeying and building and moving and building again. Some of the other women want to like settle down and they go, there's nothing out here but like, let's make the most of our lives, because we're all like older than you, so we're gonna die first, so like let's just be like peaceful and have a bit of a life before that happens. Some of the women like pair off together and have relationships, and I think it's interesting because there's 40 women. Some of them initially are named, some of them are not, and slowly like their numbers dwindle, and so then we're introduced to other names because there's less of them. And I think there's certain characters that even though they're not in it a ton, you can still really get a sense of who they are, like Rose and Dorothy, I think, you really get like a sense of who they are as a person. Even though it's such a short book, they're only mentioned in like brief bits, but just from the way that they act and react to certain things, and like Rose and her singing, and like who's practical and who's not, and who wants to settle down and who comes together and stuff. I think the moments when like women die and the ways they die and handle death and each other's deaths, those bits, although said in a slightly detached way because our main character is slightly detached from stuff, I found very heartfelt, and it felt very meaningful that these women just thrown together in these horrible circumstances who don't really like know a ton about each other, but at the same time do know each other so well because they've been together for years, that they've like gone through this horrific scenario, then felt like a moment of freedom that has then turned out to be just another horrific scenario. The main character describes it as like the cage was one prison, but then the outside world of nothing was like another prison. It's just such a heavy story. That part had like so much death, almost like casually, but also some like really horrible death, that it's very heavy, it's very intense, it feels very like impactful. I can see why this book is like really lauded. It's a difficult one to rate because I am enjoying it, and like moments have really affected me and maybe quite emotional, but at the same time like there isn't a ton happening. It is just about survival. We've not got any answers, and I don't know that we will at this point. Our main character now, going into this third part for me, is on her own. Everyone else in the group has died. We've spanned many years of them being out of the cage, and yeah, I'm just wondering where this is going, but I'm very intrigued. But I am liking it, but I'm gonna finish it now. I'm gonna read these last 50 pages and I'll just update you with like overall thoughts and feelings at the end once I've finished, because there's not a ton of plot, so I don't really know what else to say about the plot, and at this point there's not a ton of characters. So final thoughts update to come. I finished reading I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. This was translated from the French by Ros Schwartz, and there was an introduction in here by Sophie McIntosh, which I'm glad I read at the end once I'd finished the book, because the introduction very much just talks through like the whole plot. So yeah, be aware of that. I know I've basically spoiled everything in this vlog, so if you've watched this vlog, you already know the plot. But yeah, I finished this. I want to say I really liked this, but I don't know that like is the right word. I've wanted to read this anyway, but I especially wanted to read it because it was a book I missed out on with the book club I joined, because I joined like just after they'd read this one. And talking to the women who were in the book club then and who are still in it now, they were very like mid about this book, but I found it so interesting. I would have loved to have been in the book club then to talk through this, because I finished it and then immediately was like messaging my sister to talk about it, because it's one of those books that like not a ton happens really, other than like the basic premise set up and then just sort of surviving after that. But it's one of those books that I think I'm gonna think about forever. It's one that's like, it's not a 5-star read. I give it like 4 stars. I did like it. But it's one of those reads that's not a new favourite, but it's like, it's always going to be in my mind because it was just so so bleak and so heavy and just a really messed up story. It's one of those stories that, again, these are spoilers, where you don't really get answers. It's just after like all the women have died and it's just our main character left. It's literally just about her surviving by herself, traveling from cabin to cabin, bunker to bunker, coming across a couple of like slightly different things and like trying to work out stuff. But she just comes across these items or these scenarios where she's like, okay, this is weird, something's going on here. But she never has enough pieces of anything to actually work out what is going on. Or, as a review I read said, like at the very end when she discovers this bigger bunker which has a lot more in it, and she says there's like machines and stuff and there's lots of books that she reads but she doesn't understand. The review pointed out that like potentially using these books, using these machines, you could piece together at least somewhat of what happened or what is going on. But because this character was a child when she was imprisoned, locked up in a cage, and she's never had like proper education, she's never like lived a normal life, she doesn't have the knowledge to piece together anything. She says herself, like, she comes across all this like tech and these machines and she thinks like, one of these could be a radio with which I could communicate with other people, but like I don't know what a radio is or how it works, so I can't. And that's like, so sad to me. The whole thing's so sad. Such horrible circumstances. But just surviving and like having that moment of hope where they get out of the bunker and then just continuing to survive and not finding anything new, and then everyone around you dying, and then you do find something new, you find this new environment to be in, and yet still there are no answers and you're just surviving again, but this time by yourself. It's so like so difficult to think about, like if you were in that scenario, because it's a rough time. And I just felt so much for the main character, and I think there were some fantastic quotes that you can pull from here just about like life and existence and what it means to live, what it means to survive, what it means to like want more than that, and just like, yeah, what is the meaning of life, what is the purpose of life, depending on like your circumstances, and how can you see things one way at one point and another way at another point based on a change of circumstances or a change of the people around you or your relationships and stuff. 4 stars, but a 4-star that is, yeah, forever gonna like stick in my mind. And like the very ending, very sad, like the concept of like dying by yourself, not knowing if anyone else is out there, but like trying to leave a piece of you through like written word behind, just in case someone is and finds it and that's how you could stay in the world. Even though our main character is quite a detached person, she's very practical and like tries to be logical rather than being emotional. Like, I still got quite emotional reading this. I do find the discussions of this being held up as a feminist book interesting, because obviously I'm reading this for a Feminist Friday video. And there's part of me that goes, what is actually like feminist about this? Other than it being about solely female characters written by a female author. Because initially I was like, oh, it's women being locked up by men. But as the characters go along, they actually find bunkers full of men, male bodies that have died. And so it's not just women being locked up. But then I guess you can read into that as like, it can still be patriarchy because all the guards were men, and like patriarchy does also hurt men as well as women, and men and women are both affected by patriarchy. And yeah, we don't see any female guards at any point. So there is that edge to it. And yeah, it does very much centre on women, and there are like elements of it centering on women's anatomy to some degree. They talk about like having children, not having children, our main character never having her period, but ultimately at the end when she dies, it is something to do with her body. And she says like, even though her reproductive organs and stuff never worked properly, like those are the things that are killing her, which again, sad. So I think you could question it being seen as like a feminist text, but I definitely think it also is, but maybe in a more subtle way. And also it is just impressive to have a book almost entirely female characters. And yeah, such a good book, such a good book. So that is it for this Feminist Friday. It's not a fun one, but it is a very good one. Have you read I Who Have Never Known Men? Do let me know down below. Are you interested in reading it? Even though if you've seen this video, I've like spoiled everything. I still think there's like a lot you can get out of this, and like the writing itself is really wonderful. So kudos to the author and the translator for that. But yes, do let me know down in the comments below, and I will see you soon for another Feminist Friday. Bye!